The park in Washington, D.C. was alive with activity. Children ran across the lush green fields, their laughter echoing through the air. Families lounged on picnic blankets, chatting and sharing snacks. A musician strummed a guitar near the fountain, his soothing melody blending with the vibrant energy of the afternoon. Amid the liveliness, 13-year-old Brianna sat quietly under the shade of a grand oak tree. Her radiant confidence was evident in the way she held her sketchbook, her pencil dancing across the page. Dressed in a simple yet bright outfit, she looked completely absorbed in her art, her dark skin glowing in the sunlight. Nearby, Barron Trump strolled through the park with his friends. At 17, he was tall and composed, casually dressed in a crisp white shirt and jeans. His presence was understated, but his sharp eyes took in everything. As he passed the oak tree, his gaze landed on Brianna. From a distance, he admired her concentration and the intricate lines forming on her page. He paused for a moment, but decided to keep walking, letting her enjoy her piece. The calm didn't last long. A group of teenagers, loud and unruly, entered the park. Their laughter had an edge, the kind that drew unwanted attention. They spotted Brianna under the tree, their focus locking onto her. One of them, a boy with a smug smirk, called out, "Hey, Shadow, you're too dark to sit in the sun." His words were followed by snickers from the group. Brianna stiffened, but kept her focus on her sketchbook. She had faced comments like these before and knew better than to respond. But the bullies didn't stop. Another teen chimed in, maybe she's drawing herself. Bet the pencil ran out of black already. Their laughter grew louder, cruel and piercing. Brianna's hands trembled slightly, but she refused to look up. Barron, who had stopped at a nearby bench, heard the commotion. His stomach churned as he realized what was happening. He turned toward the scene, his expression shifting from confusion to discomfort. He watched as the group circled so to Brianna, their words growing sharper. "She's ignoring us. Maybe she doesn't understand English," one of them sneered. Barron clenched his fists, his heart racing. He glanced at his friends, who seemed hesitant to get involved. Taking a deep breath, he stood up, his decision clear. He couldn't just watch anymore. The quiet day at the park was about to take a dramatic turn. The air around the oak tree grew heavy as the taunts from the bullies grew louder. Their laughter carried a cruel edge, cutting through the lively sounds of the park. Barron Trump, standing a short distance away, couldn't ignore it anymore. He had heard enough. His steps quickened, and before he could second-guess himself, he was approaching the group. "What's wrong with you?" Barron's voice rang out, clear and sharp. The bullies turned to him, their mocking laughter momentarily silenced. "Leave her alone," he demanded, his tall figure standing protectively near Brianna. The leader of the group, a boy with a confident smirk, narrowed his eyes. "Well, well," he sneered. "Isn't this a surprise? Trump's kid coming to the rescue." The group snickered, their earlier focus on Brianna, now shifting to Barron. Brianna looked up, her wide eyes meeting Barron's. She wasn't sure whether to be grateful or concerned. She had always fought her battles alone. "You don't have to do this," she said softly, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling beneath. Barron glanced at her, his expression firm. "I do," he said simply, his gaze returning to the group. The leader laughed, his voice laced with mockery. "What's your deal, huh? You think being a Trump makes you untouchable?" Brianna, still seated under the tree, took a deep breath. She stood up, her sketchbook clutched tightly in her hands. Her voice, though quieter than the bullies, carried a powerful conviction. "I'm proud of who I am," she said, looking directly at the leader. "Your words won't change that." Her calm defiance made the bullies falter for a moment, their confidence wavering. But the leader wasn't ready to back down. "Oh, look at that," he sneered. "She's got some fight in her. And you," he said, pointing at Barron, "why are you even getting involved? Trying to impress her or something?" The group erupted into laughter again, louder this time, but it was forced. By now, a small crowd had gathered, drawn by the escalating tension. People whispered to each other, some pulling out their phones to record. The situation was growing more intense by the second. Barron, his jaw clenched, reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He dialed quickly, his fingers steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "Who are you calling?" The leader mocked. "The cops. They're not going to save you." Barron didn't answer. He turned slightly away from the group, bringing the phone to his ear. "Dad," he said, his voice firm but calm. "I need your help." Donald Trump's voice on the other end was immediate. "What's going on, Barron?" "There's a problem," Barron explained, keeping his eyes on the bullies. "Some kids are bullying a girl in the park. It's bad." Trump's reply was swift. "I'll be there soon. Stay with her, Barron. Don't let this escalate." Barron hung up and turned back to the group, his calm demeanor only adding to their unease. "You're going to regret this," he said, his voice low but steady. The leader of the bullies scoffed, but his smirk didn't quite reach his eyes. The tension in the air thickened, the crowd watching closely, waiting to see what would happen next. The quiet murmurs of the crowd grew louder as the sleek black SUV rolled to a stop at the edge of the park. The shiny vehicle, with its tinted windows and polished exterior, stood out against the casual hustle and bustle of the scene. The onlookers turned their heads, curiosity rippling through the gathering. The door opened with a firm click, and Donald Trump stepped out, his unmistakable presence immediately commanding attention. Dressed in a tailored navy suit, he adjusted his tie with a composed air, scanning the scene before him. The energy shifted. Conversations hushed. Even the bullies froze, their smug expressions melting into unease. Trump walked toward the group, his stride purposeful, his gaze locking onto the teenagers who moments ago had been so full of confidence. The crowd instinctively parted to let him through, their faces a mix of awe and disbelief. "Do you think this is acceptable?" Trump's voice rang out, firm and unyielding, cutting through the silence like a knife. The leader of the bullies, now visibly less sure of himself, tried to muster some bravado. "We were just joking," he muttered, his voice faltering. "Joking?" Trump's brow furrowed, his expression hardening. "You call tearing someone down a joke? Mocking someone for their appearance? That's not humor, it's cowardice." The crowd remained silent, captivated by the unfolding confrontation. Brianna, standing a few steps behind Barron, felt her heartbeat quicken. The weight of the moment pressed heavily on her shoulders, but seeing Trump stand so firmly in her defense sparked something inside her, a flame of courage she hadn't felt before. She stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly but her voice clear. "I'm not ashamed of who I am," she said, her words carrying strength and conviction. "I deserve respect, just like anyone else." The crowd stirred. A few onlookers clapped softly, their quiet applause growing steadily louder. Barron gave her a reassuring nod, his admiration evident. Trump turned to Brianna, his expression softening slightly. "That's the spirit," he said. "Never let anyone make you feel less than you are. Your strength is your greatest power." The bullies shifted nervously, their earlier bravado now completely gone. One of them, a lanky boy with shaggy hair, muttered, "It was just a joke. We didn't mean anything by it." Trump's sharp gaze snapped back to the group. "Bullying is never just a joke," he said, his voice rising slightly. "Words can either lift someone up or tear them down, and today you've shown your weakness by choosing the latter." The bullies looked at each other, their faces flushed with embarrassment. The leader opened his mouth to respond, but quickly closed it, unable to find the words. The crowd watched intently, some recording the exchange on their phones. Others nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting approval and a newfound respect for Brianna's bravery. As Trump continued, his tone became even more authoritative. "You have a choice right now," he said, addressing the bullies directly. "You can walk away, learn from this, and do better. Or you can keep hiding behind excuses and show the world exactly who you are." The leader of the bullies swallowed hard, his bravado now completely shattered. He mumbled an apology, barely audible. "Louder," Trump said, his tone unyielding. "She deserves to hear it." "I'm sorry," the leader said, his voice louder this time, but heavy with shame. The others followed suit, their apologies stiff but sincere enough to satisfy the crowd. Brianna nodded, her chin held high. "I accept your apology," she said, her tone calm but firm. "But remember, words matter. Think about that next time." Trump nodded approvingly, then turned to the crowd. "This isn't just about one moment," he said, addressing everyone gathered. "It's about who we choose to be. Do we lift each other up, or do we tear each other down? The choice is ours, every day." The applause that followed was thunderous, echoing across the park. The bullies, now thoroughly humbled, slunk away, their heads bowed. Brianna turned to Barron, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she said quietly. Barron smiled. "You didn't need me to step in," he said. "You already had the strength. I just helped make sure people saw it." Trump approached Brianna, extending a hand. "You're a remarkable young lady," he said warmly. "Don't ever forget that." Brianna shook his hand, her confidence bolstered by his words. As the crowd began to disperse, many approached Brianna to express their support. Some even asked for selfies with Trump, who obliged with his signature grin but kept his focus on Brianna. Walking back toward the SUV with Barron, Trump placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "I'm proud of you," he said. Barron looked at him, surprised. "For what?" "For knowing what's right," Trump replied simply. The SUV door closed behind them, and as the vehicle pulled away, Brianna stood tall under the shade of the oak tree, a sketchbook in hand. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly seen not just for her talent, but for her strength. The park buzzed with murmurs as the confrontation ended. Parents pulled their children closer, whispering lessons about kindness and respect. "This is why you never judge someone," one mother said firmly to her son. Others nodded, their expressions a mix of admiration for Brianna and disapproval for the bullies. A man holding a smartphone stood near the edge of the crowd, his hand steady as he uploaded the footage to social media. The caption read, "Donald Trump defends young girl against bullies. Powerful lesson in respect." Trump took a step forward, his commanding presence holding the crowd's attention. His voice, steady yet firm, carried across the park. "What happened here today is a reminder," he began, "that we all have a responsibility, not just to stand against bullying, but to teach our children that every person deserves dignity, that no one, no matter how they look or where they come from, deserves to be torn down." The crowd fell silent, hanging on his every word. Trump turned to Brianna, his expression softening. "And this young lady," he said, gesturing toward her, "has shown more courage and grace than most adults I know. Brianna, you stood tall in the face of cruelty. That makes you a role model not just for kids, but for all of us." A round of applause erupted. Brianna's cheeks flushed, but her smile was radiant. She glanced at Barron, who nodded in encouragement. The bullies, now standing awkwardly off to the side, exchanged uneasy glances. Their earlier confidence had completely dissolved under the weight of the crowd's disapproval and Trump's words. Trump's gaze shifted to them, his expression firm but not unkind. "You have something to say, don't you?" he asked, his tone leaving no room for argument. The leader of the group hesitated, shuffling his feet. "Finally," he muttered, "we're sorry." Brianna tilted her head, her arms crossed. "Sorry for what?" she asked, her voice steady but piercing. The boy hesitated again before replying. "For the things we said. For being mean." The other bullies followed suit, mumbling apologies that lacked conviction. Trump nodded slightly, but his expression remained serious. "An apology is a good start," he said, "but it's only the beginning. If you're truly sorry, you'll change. Reflect on what you've done and think about how you can do better. Words are powerful, but actions speak louder." The bullies nodded silently, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. As the tension began to lift, members of the crowd approached Brianna to express their support. A young girl with curly blonde hair stepped forward, her eyes wide with admiration. "I think you're really brave," she said shyly. Brianna's face lit up. "Thank you," she replied, her voice warm. Nearby, a father leaned down to his son. "Remember this moment," he said. "It's a lesson you'll carry with you." The energy in the park shifted. What had started as a scene of cruelty and division transformed into one of unity and hope. As the crowd slowly dispersed, people exchanged kind words and thoughtful glances, inspired by the lessons learned. Trump walked over to Barron and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You handled this well," he said. "I'm proud of you." Barron smiled faintly. It felt like the right thing to do. Trump nodded, his expression thoughtful. It always is. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the park, Brianna picked up her sketchbook. She looked at Trump, Barron, and the supportive onlookers around her. Despite the pain of the encounter, she felt a renewed sense of strength and belonging. "Thank you," she said softly, her words directed to everyone who had stood by her side. Trump smiled. The world needs more people like you, Brianna. Don't ever let anyone dim your light. And with that, the crowd began to drift away, their hearts a little fuller, and their minds a little clearer on what it means to stand up for what's right. Brianna sat on a park bench, clutching her sketchbook. The crowd had mostly dispersed, leaving behind an atmosphere that was calm but still charged with the weight of what had happened. Barron approached her, his steps slow and deliberate. "I owe you an apology," Barron said, his voice sincere. He stuffed his hands into his pockets, his usual confidence tempered by humility. "I should have stepped in sooner. You were so brave." Brianna looked up, surprised by his words. A small smile broke through her serious expression. "Thank you," she said quietly. "But having you stand up for me, that helped more than you know." Barron nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I meant it when I said what they were doing was wrong. You didn't deserve that. No one does." Brianna tilted her head slightly, her grip on the sketchbook loosening. "It's just something I've gotten used to," she admitted, her tone soft but tinged with sadness. "People think they can say whatever they want about how I look." "That's not okay," Barron said firmly. "And it's not something you should ever have to get used to too. You're amazing. Those bullies, they're just cowards." For the first time that day, Brianna laughed a light, genuine sound that made Barron smile. "You're not like I expected," she said, her eyes studying him with curiosity. "Neither are you," Barron replied, a grin spreading across his face. Donald Trump approached the pair, his presence as commanding as ever but noticeably softer in demeanor. He looked at Brianna, his expression warm. "Brianna, I didn't get a chance to ask what you love to do." Brianna hesitated, glancing down at her sketchbook. "I like to draw," she said quietly. "It's my way of escaping when things get tough." Trump's eyes lit up with interest. "Can I see?" She hesitated for a moment, then opened her sketchbook, revealing intricate drawings of nature, people, and abstract designs. Trump flipped through the pages carefully, his admiration clear. "These are incredible," he said. "You have real talent." Brianna blushed under the praise. "Thank you." "You know," Trump continued, "I know people who can help artists like you. Would you be interested in sharing your work with the world?" Brianna's eyes widened. "You'd really do that?" "Absolutely," Trump said. "Your talent deserves to be seen." Barron chimed in, "And maybe we could collaborate on something, like an anti-bullying campaign. Your art could inspire a lot of people." Brianna smiled brightly. "That would be amazing." The two exchanged contact information, their earlier connection deepening into what felt like the start of a meaningful friendship. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Brianna looked at the two Trumps, her confidence renewed. "Thank you for everything," she said, her voice steady. Trump smiled. "No, thank you, Brianna. The world needs people like you, strong, talented, and unafraid to stand up for what's right." Barron nodded in agreement, his gaze unwavering. "This isn't the end, Brianna. It's just the beginning." And in that moment, amidst the lingering echoes of an earlier conflict, a bond was forged, one built on respect, courage, and the shared belief that kindness could change the world. The video of the park confrontation took the internet by storm. Shared by a bystander, it captured Donald Trump's commanding intervention, Barron's unwavering support, and Brianna's courageous stand. Within hours, it was trending on every platform with hashtags like Stand with Brianna and Trump for Respect. Social media erupted with reactions, most praising Trump and Barron for their actions. "Leadership isn't just about politics, it's about humanity," one tweet read, accompanied by the clip of Trump chastising the bullies. Another user posted, "Barron Trump stood up for what's right. We need more of this in the world." The comments weren't just about the Trumps. Brianna quickly became a symbol of resilience. People admired her strength in the face of cruelty, calling her a role model for self-respect and dignity. The outpouring of support overwhelmed Brianna at first. She watched the video of herself speaking against the bullies and couldn't believe the impact her words were having. "You're so brave," one message read. "You've inspired me to love myself more," said another. Spurred by this encouragement, Brianna decided to channel her feelings into her art. Her sketches became bold statements of diversity, featuring people of all races, abilities, and body types in vibrant colors. She titled her project "Beautiful as We Are." One of her pieces, depicting a young girl standing confidently amid a storm, went viral. "This is how I felt that day," Brianna explained in an interview. "Scared, but determined not to let anyone tear me down." As her art gained attention, schools and community centers invited her to speak about her experiences. Her story resonated deeply with young audiences, many of whom had faced similar challenges. "She's a hero," one student said after attending her talk. Meanwhile, Donald Trump wasn't content to let the incident be a one-time event. "We must teach our children and remind ourselves that respect is the foundation of a strong society." The campaign, aptly named United in Respect, featured Barron and Brianna as its ambassadors. Together, they visited schools, hosted workshops, and appeared in public service announcements. One PSA showed Barron saying, "Standing up for someone isn't just brave, it's necessary," followed by Brianna's voice, "Because everyone deserves respect." The initiative sparked nationwide conversations. Schools introduced programs on kindness and empathy. Social media platforms launched anti-bullying campaigns, encouraging users to report harassment and spread positivity. For Brianna, the movement was life-changing. "I never thought standing up for myself would lead to this," she said in an interview. "It shows that one voice can create a ripple that turns into a wave." As the campaign gained momentum, Brianna and Barron formed a close bond. They often brainstormed ideas for the initiative, sharing a vision of a world where no one had to face cruelty alone. And across the globe, people took notice. The ripples of their actions reached far and wide, proving that even in moments of adversity, kindness and courage could spark lasting change. The park buzzed with energy as people gathered for a special community event weeks after the incident. Families, students, and local leaders filled the space, their voices blending with the upbeat sound of a live band. Banners reading "Celebrate Kindness," "Embrace Diversity" hung from the stage, setting the tone for the day. The atmosphere was one of hope and unity, a stark contrast to the events that had sparked this gathering. Backstage, Brianna adjusted the mic clip to her dress. Her heart raced as she prepared to speak. She glanced at Barron Trump, who gave her an encouraging nod. "You've got this," he said with a smile. His words settled her nerves. Brianna took a deep breath, ready to share her story with the crowd. When she stepped onto the stage, the applause was deafening. The crowd rose to their feet, their cheers filling the park. Brianna stood tall, her confidence shining through as she gripped the microphone. She paused, letting the moment sink in before beginning. "I never thought standing up for myself would lead to something like this," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "That day in the park I felt small and scared. But today I feel strong because of all of you." The crowd erupted into cheers and applause. Brianna's words struck a chord with everyone present. She continued, her tone resolute. "No one deserves to feel less because of who they are. We all have worth. We all belong. And when we support one another, we can create something amazing." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the audience. It's not always easy to speak up, but when we do, we find courage we didn't know we had. And that courage, it changes everything. Her heartfelt words were met with more applause. Tears glistened in the eyes of several attendees, moved by her bravery and honesty. Brianna's story had touched something deep within them. Next, Barron took the stage. Dressed in a simple yet sharp outfit, his calm confidence was evident. He smiled at Brianna as she stepped back, then addressed the crowd. "When I saw what was happening that day, I couldn't stay silent," he began, his voice firm. "But what I didn't expect was how much Brianna would teach me about bravery. She didn't let the bullies win. She showed strength and grace in a way that inspired me and everyone who saw it." Barron's words carried admiration and respect. He glanced at Brianna, his tone softening. She stood tall when it mattered most. That's a lesson we can all learn from. The crowd cheered once again, their applause echoing through the park. Parents turned to their children, using the moment to teach them about the importance of kindness and standing up for what's right. Finally, Donald Trump stepped forward. His presence immediately commanded attention, but his demeanor was warm and sincere. The crowd quieted, hanging on his every word. "This isn't about politics," he began, his tone measured. "It's about what kind of world we want to live in. A world where every person is treated with dignity and respect." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the audience. Respect isn't a gift, it's a right. It's something we owe each other, no matter our differences. and it's time we all take a stand against hate and bullying." His words resonated deeply. Many nodded in agreement, while others wiped away tears. Trump turned to Brianna, his expression softening. "You've shown us what courage looks like. You are a role model for all of us." Brianna's face lit up with a smile as the crowd erupted in applause. The moment was hers, a testament to her strength and resilience. As the event continued, community leaders spoke about the importance of unity and empathy. Local organizations set up booths promoting anti-bullying campaigns and diversity initiatives. The energy was electric, filled with a sense of purpose and hope. After the speeches, Brianna and Barron shared a quiet moment offstage. Barron handed her a small sketchbook. "For your art," he said. "I can't wait to see what you create." Brianna opened the book, touched by the gesture. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." They exchanged smiles, a bond of friendship and shared purpose forming between them. "Let's keep this going," Barron said. "Together we can make a difference." As the event wound down, attendees lingered, sharing stories and connecting with one another. A father approached Brianna with his young daughter, who shyly handed her a drawing. "You've inspired her," he said. "You've inspired all of us." Brianna's heart swelled. She knelt to thank the girl, feeling the impact of her actions ripple outward. This was more than just a moment, it was a movement. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the park, Brianna, Barron, and Trump stood together, watching the crowd. The event had been a success, a testament to the power of courage and kindness. "This is just the beginning," Trump said, his voice filled with determination. Brianna nodded. "We're just getting started." The three of them walked away, united in their mission to create a world where respect and empathy prevailed. The day had been a powerful reminder that small acts of courage could spark waves of change, and that together, anything was possible.